All right, we're going to take a look into these claims of Jeffrey Epstein supposedly killing himself in jail while on suicide watch. So let's get into this.
It's not easing conspiracy theorists' fears. Right now, you just heard Al Green, the
Okay,
Democratic.
so first of all, you can see how they want to make this a issue of being a conspiracy theorist when it's really just an issue of showing proof for claims. So let's continue.
Congressman, among those, like the investigator Ted Williams, saying, how is it a guy on suicide watch and 24/7 surveillance manages to commit suicide in the very jail cell he attempted the exact same thing only a few weeks ago?
There you go. That's a good question. How does a man who's on suicide watch, 24-hour surveillance, who's in jail, who attempted to commit suicide weeks earlier, apparently. How is this man able to successfully commit suicide? Let's continue.
So much we don't know. Let's get the latest from Fox News correspondent Brian Yennis. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Neil. Well, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has come out with an official statement confirming what we have been reporting now for the last couple hours, that Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive around 6:30 this morning in his jail cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. They said that life-saving measures were initiated, but it was too late. They are calling it an apparent suicide. That's officially coming from the Bureau of Prisons. Now, we're talking about what's happening to Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's important to realize the level of charges that this man was facing. This is somebody who was facing 45 years in prison, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. Millions of court documents, dozens of victims, thousands of photos found recently in his home, in his mansion.
And what you also need to know to help bring this story into context is the victims weren't only claiming that Epstein sexually assaulted them, but that there were also other people of so-called power or influence who were also involved with this sexual assaults.
New York, of girls and minors, nude and semi-nude. The weight of the Southern District of New York was against him. And just recently this week, thousands of other documents were released in civil lawsuits against him. Again, this case was pretty rock solid in terms of the evidence coming towards him. So I think it's important to realize that as we try to analyze what we're seeing here with Jeffrey Epstein apparently killing himself. Another thing, the attorneys for some of the victims have released a statement. Brad Edwards is an attorney for Virginia Goffrey. She's one of the victims here, one of the people who accused Epstein. And in that statement, it said the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was able to commit the selfish act of taking his own life as his world of abuse, exploitation, and corruption unraveled is both unfortunate and predictable. The victims deserved to see Epstein held accountable, and he owed it to everyone he hurt to accept responsibility for all the pain he caused. That is some of the sentiment that's now coming from all of these women who had accused this man and who had waited for at least almost 2 decades to see some sort of justice served here. So I also think the thoughts here are now with those people who are trying to now figure out how they are going to see justice done.
So you can see there's been a long issue with getting this matter brought to the court system. They said over 20 years victims have been, attempting to try to bring this guy to justice. And for whatever reason, even back in 2009 or whenever it was when he was convicted and given a slap on the hand or slap on the wrist, basically, um, that was basically another attempt to get this out of the mainstream and kind of keep it as quiet as possible. And you got to ask why. Why are they working so hard to not keep this in and make sure this issue comes to fruition in court and can be closed? But there's too much. There's too many people of power who are involved, so they want this out of the system as fast as possible. This With this so-called suicide of Jeffrey Epstein, this closes down the criminal court proceedings. Now all that's left is civil court, which basically means the victims are going to be able to go after, the estate, but that's not going to bring forth really criminal charges against anyone at this point.
Think about being in the courtroom when Annie Farmer, who said when she was 16 years old, Epstein had her sent to his New Mexico ranch where he was inappropriate with her, and Courtney Wild, who says she was 14 when Epstein sexually abused her in his Palm Beach home. And I think of both of those victims because both of those alleged victims said they spoke in court at his bail hearing not a few weeks ago, and they said, please, judge, do not let this man out. He is a danger to the community. And in fact, they were really adamant about that. And for them, that was the very first time that they had seen Jeffrey Epstein in a courtroom, and they spoke directly to him and to the court. And that was a moment for them where they were able to finally feel as though they were getting their voices heard. And so I not only am thinking about Annie Farmer and Courtney Wild, but I'm thinking about the dozens of other potential victims here who are now been robbed of the chance to have been able to see justice served, or to at least have had a process and a trial for themselves. In terms of what's next, Neil, quickly here, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has steps that need to be taken. In the event of a suicide, right now they are treating that jail cell as a crime scene. The FBI is now investigating, and now what's now going to happen is there's going to be a report that's going to be put together by a psychologist and others, and it's called a mortality review report. And that's going to be prepared, and it's going to explain essentially what happened here. There's also going to be a psychological reconstruction report. Those are then going.
Okay, so apparently the FBI is going to do an investigation and create a report based on what happened, or how Jeffrey Epstein was able to commit suicide while under 24-hour surveillance. I would say there needs to be some sort of independent investigation done. The FBI is too close to this.
Going to be sent to a special review committee, and that special review committee will essentially see what kind of recommendations need to be taken for either corrective action, or if something needs to be happening, who needs to be at fault here for this. You had mentioned this before. This is a man who was at the Metropolitan Correctional Center under 24-hour security and surveillance, and somebody who was on suicide watch. Obviously, right.
There you go. You're under 24-hour surveillance and security watch. How do you commit suicide?
Now, there are big questions about how this could happen. And obviously, because of this man's connections to politically important people from both sides of...
There you go. Because of his connections to politically, and not just politically, but people of all types of power and influence.
The aisle, as well as celebrities and wealthy people. Of course, those conspiracy theories are going to be out on Twitter. And until we know more, though, I think, it is important to realize the weight of the charges leveled against this guy, and that obviously he had tried to kill himself again. So we'll see. The facts will play itself out here, Neil. But that is what we know so far.
Brian Yennis, thank you very, very much. And to Brian's point, there is presumably tape of this, and you can.
And there you go. There's presumably tape recordings of this. Okay? If you're not going to show us the video of this, then we can't take it as proof. We can't take it as fact. It cannot be trusted. Show the video, or show proof. You're not showing proof, then don't make the claim. We can't just take your word. That's not good enough.
That authorities have already searched that tape at the timing early this morning, presume around 6:30 a.m., when, by almost all accounts, he killed himself. Jeffrey Epstein dead at 66. More to this.
So yeah, that's basically it. There's video, so apparently, of the suicide. So maybe someone can help get that video released. But until then, I would say there's no proof for the claims that Jeffrey Epstein is either dead or committed suicide. All right, I'll catch y'all next time. Y'all take it easy.